The alert came at exactly 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. Deep space sensors had detected something massive approaching the solar system. Captain Tom Reed was drinking his third cup of coffee when the warning lights began flashing across the bridge of the ESC Venture. "Report," he ordered, setting down his metal cup with a quiet clank. "Sir, we're picking up multiple objects entering the system," Officer Lisa Brown said, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "They're big, really big." Reed leaned forward in his chair, watching as the main screen filled with data. The objects were slowing down, but something about their movement patterns seemed wrong. They weren't following a controlled approach vector. They were drifting. "How many?" he asked. 50 ships, sir, each one bigger than anything we've ever built." But Lisa paused, double-checking her readings. "They're not under power. They're just coasting." Reed pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All hands to stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, all hands to stations." The Venture's engines hummed to life as they changed course to intercept the mysterious fleet. Earth Space Command had trained them for first contact scenarios, but nothing quite like this. As they drew closer, the ships became visible through the main viewport, massive vessels that gleamed like polished silver in the distant sunlight. "No response to our hails," Communications Officer Mike Parker reported, "but I'm picking up some kind of distress beacon. It's using frequencies we've never seen before." Reed made his decision. "Launch reconnaissance drones. Let's get a closer look before we approach." The drone feeds showed them something extraordinary. The alien ships were works of art, curved and elegant, like liquid metal frozen in space. But they were dark, with only faint emergency lights pulsing along their hulls. Through the windows, they could see movement. The ships weren't abandoned. "Sir," Lisa called out, her voice tense. "The nearest ship is venting atmosphere. Slowly, but steadily. They've got structural problems." Reed didn't hesitate. "Suit up the rescue team. We're going in." The Venture's rescue shuttle carried Reed and his team across the void. As they approached the nearest ship's airlock, they saw their first alien. It was pressed against a window, a tall, slender figure that seemed to glow from within, its skin emitting a soft, blue-white light. "It's beautiful," whispered Jack Thompson, the team's medical officer. The alien raised a hand in what was unmistakably a greeting. Next to it, an airlock door slowly cycled open, an invitation. The boarding team found an environment they could breathe, though it was uncomfortably warm and humid. The aliens, they discovered, were called the Bright Ones. At least, that was the closest English translation. Their bioluminescent skin pulsed with patterns that seemed to be part of their speech. Through a combination of gestures and basic mathematical equations, they established communication. The Bright Ones' story became clear. Their entire fleet had been crippled by an unknown phenomenon that had rendered their quantum drive systems useless. They were stranded, running on emergency power, with over 300,000 souls aboard their ships. "How long can your emergency systems last?" Reed asked through the makeshift translation system they'd cobbled together. The answer chilled him. 2 weeks. Maybe less. As the Venture transmitted its findings back to Earth, Reed stood at a viewport with the alien ship's engineer, watching the rest of the fleet drift silently through space. The Bright One's skin pulsed with what Reed was learning to recognize as anxiety. "We will help you," Reed said slowly, making sure the translator caught his words. "Humanity will not let you face this alone." The alien's glow brightened slightly. Hope, perhaps. Its translator spoke in a synthetic voice. "Your confidence is admirable, but our technology is far beyond yours. How can you help when we cannot help ourselves?" Reed smiled. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations forgot the simplest solutions. Because, he said, sometimes you need to take a step backward to move forward. As emergency beacons activated across the fleet, lighting up the darkness of space like a constellation of distress, Humanity prepared for its greatest rescue mission. They had 2 weeks to save an alien civilization. It was time to show the galaxy what humans could do. The United Earth Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence as Captain Reed's report played on the massive screen. Next to him stood Ambassador K of the Bright Ones, their luminescent skin casting a gentle glow across the podium. 300,000 souls, Reed said, his voice echoing through the chamber. That's how many lives are at stake. To put this in perspective, that's like having to rescue everyone from a large city in space. The ambassador's skin pulsed with bands of deep blue, a sign of distress they had learned. Their translator converted the light patterns into speech. Our children make up 1/3 of our population. Our emergency systems are failing faster than predicted. We estimate 11 days remaining, not 14. A murmur ran through the chamber. Someone stood up from the Chinese delegation. What exactly happens when your life support fails? Kay's response was simple but terrifying. Below 30 degrees Celsius, our bodies begin to crystallize. It is not a pleasant death. We would lose consciousness first, then our organs would fail within hours. Reed activated a holographic display showing the alien fleet. Their ships are masterpieces of engineering, but they're dying. Whatever knocked out their quantum drives also damaged their main power systems. They're running on the equivalent of backup batteries. What exactly do they need? Asked the representative from India, leaning forward in her seat. Power, Reed replied. Enough to run life support for 50 massive ships. Their technology is far more advanced than ours, but right now that's part of the problem. It's like having a broken-down sports car in the desert. All that sophisticated engineering doesn't help if you can't get it started. The American representative stood next. What are the costs we're looking at? Reed looked at the numbers on his tablet. To attempt any kind of rescue, we'd need to divert 20% of Earth's global power production. We'd need every space-capable vessel we have. We'd need to empty our orbital fuel stations, and we'd need to do it all in less than 11 days. The chamber erupted in argument. Some nations immediately pledged support. Others protested the cost. A few questioned whether Earth should help at all. Ambassador K watched the debate, their skin shifting to a pale yellow, a color they hadn't seen before. Captain Reed leaned closer to them. What does that color mean? Shame, K replied softly. In our arrogance, we thought ourselves far superior to Earth. We never registered your planet as anything more than a developing world. Yet here we are, begging for your help. The debate raged on for hours. Resources, costs, logistics, risks, everything was argued. Then a quiet voice cut through the noise. Dr. Emma Jones, Earth's leading expert on power systems, stood up from the technical advisory section. We're thinking about this wrong, she said. We don't need to power their ships with our grid. We need to teach them how to use simple, reliable power again. She looked at Ambassador K. When was the last time your people used nuclear fission? K's skin flickered in what they'd learned was surprise. Fission. That is, primitive technology. We abandoned it over 1,000 years ago. Exactly, Emma smiled. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Their ships have massive cargo holds. We can build compact fission reactors right there in space. Simple, reliable, and powerful enough to run their life support until they can repair their quantum systems. The chamber went quiet. Ambassador K's skin began to pulse with rapid patterns of white and blue. Excitement, they'd learned. Would your people accept such a solution? Reed asked them, using what you might consider outdated technology. K's answer was immediate, their skin glowing brighter than ever. Captain Reed, right now we would accept running our ships on burning wood if it would save our children. If your people can do this, if you can actually build these reactors in time, we would be forever in humanity's debt. The council chamber filled with new energy. This wasn't just about saving lives anymore. This was humanity's chance to prove itself to the galaxy. As the nations began to vote on the rescue mission, Reed looked out the chamber's window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, 300,000 lives were hanging in the balance, waiting to see if the primitive humans could save them with their primitive technology. The real work was about to begin. The cargo bay of the ESC Venture had been transformed into a makeshift laboratory. Engineer Maria Ross stood before a holographic display of reactor schematics, her dark hair messy from running her hands through it too many times. She hadn't slept in 30 hours, but there was no time for rest. Not with 10 days left on the clock. The problem isn't building the reactors, she explained to the mixed team of human and alien engineers. The problem is connecting them to your systems without frying everything. The Bright One engineer, whom they called Blue for his distinctively deep azure glow, moved his hands through the hologram. His skin flickered with patterns that the translator converted to words. Your nuclear technology is crude. The radiation alone would damage our sensitive systems. Maria smiled. Crude doesn't mean ineffective. Look at this. She pulled up a new diagram. We're not going to build regular reactors. We're going to build them using your hull materials. The same stuff that protects you from space radiation can contain our reaction. The human and alien engineers gathered closer. Dr. Alan West, the nuclear specialist, pointed to the design. It's like building a nuclear power plant inside a quantum computer. Sure, it's not elegant, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to work for a few months until they can repair their main systems. Blue's skin pulsed with doubt. The energy signatures are completely different. Our power systems expect quantum fluctuations, not crude electrical current. Then we'll build an adapter, Maria said, pulling up another design. Think of it like a universal power converter, but on a massive scale. We'll use your quantum stabilizers to smooth out our power delivery. The first test was a disaster. They had converted a shuttle small reactor to work with alien technology, but when they powered it up, it overloaded the alien systems instantly. The resulting power surge burned out half their testing equipment. Maria didn't give up. She studied the failure data all night, making adjustments to her designs. The problem isn't the power, she told Captain Reed the next morning. It's the translation. We're trying to speak their language, but we need to teach their systems to speak ours. 7 days remained when they made their breakthrough. It came from an unexpected source, the ship's cook, Robert Miller. He was serving coffee when he overheard the engineers arguing about power conversion. You know, he said, it's like when I'm cooking with ingredients from the Bright One ships. Their food processing units can't handle our raw ingredients directly. I have to pre-process everything, or their systems reject it. Maria's eyes lit up. That's it. We're not building one big converter. We need to build hundreds of small ones, a whole chain of energy conversion steps. The new design was ugly by alien standards. It looked like someone had grafted steampunk technology onto a piece of advanced alien art. But when they tested it on the shuttle, it worked. The alien systems accepted the power, converting it smoothly into something they could use. Ambassador K watched the successful test through the observation window, their skin glowing with hope for the first time in days. It is not how we would have done it, they admitted to Captain Reed. Our engineers would have spent months trying to rebuild our quantum systems perfectly. Your people instead found a way to make imperfect things work together. That's what humans do best, Reed replied. We adapt. We find ways to make things work with whatever we have. Perhaps, Kay's skin pulsed thoughtfully. That is why your species survived on such a challenging world. You never wait for perfect solutions. You build what works now. Maria was already organizing construction teams. They would need to build 50 massive reactor systems in less than a week. It was an impossible task by any reasonable standard. But as she looked at the determined faces around her, human and alien working side by side, she knew they would find a way. All right, people, she announced, pulling up the construction plans. We've got the design. We've got the materials. Now we show the galaxy what humanity can build when we put our minds to it. Let's save some lives. The impossible task had begun. Space around the alien fleet had become a hive of activity. Human ships darted between the massive vessels like worker bees, carrying materials and construction teams. They had 6 days left, and the clock was ticking. Reactor 3 just failed its startup sequence. A voice crackled over the radio. Maria Ross rubbed her tired eyes. Floating in the zero-gravity construction bay of one of the largest alien ships. Around her, pieces of the 4th reactor were being assembled by teams working in spacesuits. "What happened?" she asked, pushing off a wall to reach her communication panel. "Power spike in the conversion chain. The alien systems rejected it completely." Maria checked the time. They couldn't afford these setbacks. Each reactor took 18 hours to build, and they needed 50 of them. The math was brutal. They were falling behind schedule. On the alien ship's bridge, Captain Reed watched the temperature monitors with growing concern. The massive vessel's life support was failing faster than expected. The display showed 32 degrees Celsius and slowly dropping. They had less time than they thought. "How are your people holding up?" he asked Blue, who was coordinating the alien engineering teams. Blue's skin flickered with exhaustion patterns. "We are managing. The cold slows us down, but we continue. The children have been moved to the central chambers where it's warmest." A loud alarm blared through the construction bay. Reactor 5, which had been working perfectly in tests, suddenly shut down. Maria kicked off the wall in frustration, sending herself floating across the bay. "This isn't working fast enough," she said into her radio. "We need to change our approach." She paused, watching the teams work. "Everyone, stop what you're doing. We're switching to parallel construction." Her new plan was risky. Instead of building and testing each reactor sequentially, they would build all of them at once. It meant less testing, more chance of failure, but they had no choice. "Each team takes one component," she ordered. "Learn to build it perfectly, then do it again and again. We'll assemble them all at the end." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Human and alien crews worked in shifts, passing tools and components through the zero-gravity environment. They stopped testing individual parts and focused on mass production. When someone got too tired to work safely, they were ordered to take a 2-hour sleep break in the floating rest pods. Problems kept appearing. A batch of cooling systems failed quality checks. An alien power conduit ruptured, forcing the evacuation of an entire construction bay. 2 human workers suffered radiation exposure and had to be sent back to Earth. But they kept going. 4 days left, Reeve announced during the daily briefing. "And I have bad news. 3 more ships have dropped below 31 degrees. We're running out of time." Maria looked at her teams, seeing the exhaustion in their faces, both human and alien. She made a decision. "We're skipping the safety margins," she announced. "Blue, can your systems handle a 10% power fluctuation?" Blue's skin pulsed with alarm. "That is extremely dangerous. But yes, they can survive it. Briefly." "Good. We're removing the final stabilizer stage from the conversion chain. It'll be rougher on your systems, but we can build the reactors 30% faster." Ambassador K, who had been observing from the command center, spoke up through the communication system. Their skin patterns showed both fear and admiration. "You would risk our ships exploding to save them." "No," Maria replied, already modifying the construction plans. "I'm risking the ships being damaged to save your people. Ships can be repaired. Lives can't be restored." A ripple of light passed through Kay's skin, the alien equivalent of a deep breath. "Proceed with your plan, Engineer Ross. We trust you." Those words hung in the air of the construction bay. Trust. These advanced aliens were putting their lives in the hands of humans using technology they had abandoned centuries ago. Maria looked at her teams. "You heard the ambassador. Let's show them that trust is not misplaced. Back to work, everyone. We've got reactors to build." The race against time continued, but now they had something more powerful than advanced technology on their side. They had trust, determination, and the unwavering human spirit that had taken them to the stars in the first place. The emergency alarms on Ship 7 screamed through the corridors. Captain Reed's voice was tense as he spoke into his communication device. "Report. What's happening?" "Complete failure of the backup systems, sir," came the response. "Temperature dropping fast. They've got over 10,000 people on that ship, including 3,000 children in the central chambers. The massive alien vessel was the largest in the fleet, and now it was dying faster than anyone had predicted." Reed watched the temperature readings with growing horror. 29 degrees and falling rapidly. "How long until the reactor for Ship 7 is ready?" he asked Maria through the emergency channel. Her response was immediate but grim. 3 days minimum. "We can't speed it up any more than we already have." "They don't have 3 days," Blue's translator crackled. Their skin was pulsing with emergency patterns. "At this rate, they have 4 hours before the cold begins to kill them." Reed made the hardest decision of his career. "We're evacuating Ship 7. Now. All available vessels, respond. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The response from Earth's ships was immediate. Every vessel that could carry passengers changed course toward Ship 7. But the numbers were impossible. They had standard capacity for maybe 3,000 people combined. "We'll have to exceed safety limits," Reed ordered. "Pack them in wherever you can. Use cargo bays, engine rooms, everywhere." Maria's voice came through the channel. "Captain, we've got space for 2,000 in the construction bays if we halt reactor production." "Do it," Reed commanded. "Ambassador K, we need permission to move your people to other ships in your fleet." K's response was instant, their skin flashing with emergency authorization patterns. "Granted, but many ships are already near capacity with their life support struggling." What followed was the largest emergency evacuation in human history. Every ship, human and alien, that could still maintain safe temperatures opened their doors. The sight was extraordinary. Hundreds of small human vessels darting back and forth, carrying the glowing forms of the bright ones to safety. In the chaos, humanity showed its true colors. Ship captains ignored safety protocols, stuffing their vessels far beyond capacity. Construction workers converted their rest areas into emergency shelters. Medical teams worked nonstop, treating the bright ones who had been exposed to the cold for too long. On Earth's moon base, emergency shelters were being prepared. The base's temperature control systems were pushed to their limits to create habitable spaces for the aliens. Hotels, conference centers, and even private homes in the lunar colonies were open to the refugees. 2 hours left, reported the monitoring team on Ship 7. The temperature had dropped to 27 degrees. The evacuation was less than half complete. That's when Dr. Emma Jones had an idea. "The spacesuits," she said suddenly, "are thermal suits. They're designed to keep humans warm in space." Reed understood immediately. "How many suits do we have?" "About 2,000 across all ships. They're not perfect. They're designed for human shapes. But they might buy us time." The remaining hours were a blur of activity. Human crews gave up their suits to alien children. The bright ones, despite their discomfort in the bulky human equipment, managed to adapt. Their glowing forms looked strange in the mechanical suits, but they were alive. Against all odds, they did it. The last group was evacuated just as Ship 7's temperature dropped below critical levels. 10,000 lives saved, scattered across the fleet and lunar colonies. In the aftermath, as Reed watched the empty ship drift dark and cold in space, Ambassador K approached him on the Venture's bridge. Their skin pulsed with complex emotions. "You saved them," K said simply. "Even when it seemed impossible, your people gave up their own safety equipment, risked their lives, broke every protocol you had." Reed shook his head. "That's what humans do. We adapt. We overcome. We don't leave people behind." K's skin glowed with a new pattern, one the translators couldn't quite capture. It looked like respect, but it was something more. Something deeper. Perhaps, Kay said quietly. We have more to learn from Earth than we thought. 3 days after the evacuation of Ship 7, Maria Ross stood in the command center of the alien flagship, surrounded by screens showing reactor status reports. 49 reactors were ready. They had one shot at this. If we do this wrong, she explained to the gathered human and alien leaders, we could fry every power system in the fleet. But if we don't try, half these ships will be dead in 2 days. Blue's skin flickered with nervous energy as they studied the power distribution diagrams. The energy surge from activating all reactors at once, it could overload our quantum buffers. That's why we're not activating them all at once, Maria said, pulling up her plan on the main screen. We're going to do it in waves, using the successfully powered ships to help stabilize the others. Captain Reed watched from his position near the window, where the fleet stretched out before them like a city of silver giants. Most ships were running on their last reserves of power. The evacuated Ship 7 hung dark and lifeless among them, a reminder of what failure would mean. Start with the smallest ships, Maria continued. Once they're stable, we use their power grid to help absorb the surge from the larger vessels, like stepping stones across a river. Ambassador Kay's skin pulsed with cautious hope. How long will the whole process take? 6 hours, Maria answered, if everything goes perfectly. The operation began with the smallest ship in the fleet. Everyone held their breath as the reactor powered up. The alien systems hummed, complained, and finally accepted the new power source. Temperature readings began to rise. 1 down, Maria said, allowing herself a small smile. 48 to go. They worked in groups of 3, powering up ships in careful sequence. Each success gave them more confidence, more stability for the next group. But it wasn't smooth sailing. On the 4th group, a power surge blew out half the conversion systems. Bypass the damaged converters, Maria ordered. Route through the secondary systems. Human and alien engineers moved in perfect synchronization now, their weeks of working together showing in their seamless cooperation. Where the aliens' sophisticated diagnostics failed, human intuition filled the gap. Where human technology seemed too crude, alien refinements made it work. The hours ticked by. 20 ships powered up. Then 30. Each success made the next one easier as they learned from their mistakes and refined their approach. Then they reached the largest ships. These would be the hardest. Their massive power requirements would strain every system they had built. All teams ready, Reed announced. Maria, it's your call. She took a deep breath, looking at the tired faces around her, human and alien alike, all waiting for her word. Begin power-up sequence. The massive reactor hummed to life. Warning alarms blared as power levels rose. The alien systems screamed in protest at the unfamiliar energy flowing through them. Conversion chain is holding, Blue reported, their skin pulsing rapidly, temperature rising. Life support is responding. One by one, the largest ships came back to life. Their lights flickered on, their systems accepting the hybrid power solution that was neither purely human nor purely alien technology. The last reactor powered up just as the sun peaked around Earth's curve. Maria watched the final reading stabilize, hardly daring to believe they had done it. All ships report stable power, Reed announced, his voice thick with emotion. Life support systems functioning. Temperature rising to normal levels. The command center erupted in cheers. Humans hugged each other while the bright ones pulsed with joy patterns so bright they were almost blinding. Ambassador Kay approached Maria, their skin glowing with the most complex pattern she had ever seen. In all our history, they said, we have never seen anything like this. You took parts of both our technologies and made something entirely new. Maria looked at the screens showing 49 powered ships, their hybrid reactors humming with stable energy. That's the real human secret, she said. We don't just solve problems. We learn from them. Everything we built here, it's not just human technology anymore. It's something better. As the fleet came fully alive for the first time in weeks, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Humanity had done more than save an alien species. They had proven that sometimes the best solutions come not from advancing forward, but from remembering where you came from. 1 month after the successful rescue of the alien fleet, the United Earth Council chamber was once again filled to capacity. This time, however, the mood was very different. The Bright One's ships hung in orbit above Earth, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight, each one powered by human-made reactors that had proven more reliable than anyone expected. Captain Reed stood at attention as Ambassador K addressed the council. Their skin glowed with formal patterns that the translators had learned to recognize as their most official mode of communication. "We came to your solar system by accident," K began, their words echoing through the chamber. "We were stranded, helpless, and if we are honest, more than a little dismissive of your civilization's capabilities." The ambassador's skin shifted to a new pattern, one that rippled with complex emotions. "We were wrong. Completely and utterly wrong." Maria Ross sat in the front row, still tired from weeks of overseeing the reactor installations. Next to her, Blue's skin pulsed with agreeing patterns. "Our Council of Elders has made an unprecedented decision," Kay continued. "We wish to establish a permanent embassy on Earth, not just a diplomatic outpost, but a center for technological and cultural exchange." A murmur of surprise ran through the chamber. This was more than anyone had expected. Furthermore, Kay's skin brightened. "We propose a joint space exploration initiative. Your nuclear hybrid power systems have shown us that there are paths to the stars we never considered, paths that combine reliability with sophistication." Reed couldn't help but smile. The primitive nuclear reactors had been running flawlessly for weeks now. Some alien ships had even reported better power efficiency than their original quantum systems. "But most importantly," Kay said, their glow softening, "we wish to learn from you. Not just your technology, but your spirit. In our 1,000 years of space travel, we had forgotten something that you reminded us of." The ambassador turned, gesturing to where Ship 7 now orbited Earth, fully restored and better than new. "When that ship was failing, your people broke every rule, ignored every protocol, and risked their own lives to save our children. You showed us that true advancement isn't just about having the most sophisticated technology. It's about having the heart to use whatever tools you have to help others." Maria felt Blue touch her shoulder gently. The alien engineer's skin showed the patterns she now knew meant deep friendship. They had worked together for countless hours, teaching each other, learning from each other, creating something new together. "To formally recognize this," Kay announced, "the Council of Elders has officially reclassified Earth. You are no longer listed as a developing world in our databases. As of today, humanity is recognized as a full peer species of the galactic community." The chamber erupted in applause. Reed saw tears in Maria's eyes as she stood with the others. They had done more than save lives. They had changed how an advanced civilization saw humanity. Kay raised their hands, their skin pulsing with one final announcement. "And one more thing. The hybrid reactors you designed. We've already had requests from 12 other species who want to learn this technology." It seems their skin flickered with what could only be described as amusement, that sometimes the old ways combined with new thinking create the best solutions. As the ceremony concluded, Reed found himself standing with Maria and Blue at the chamber's great window, looking up at the fleet that had brought their peoples together. "What happens now?" Maria asked softly. Blue's skin rippled with optimistic patterns. Now we build something new. Together." Reed nodded, watching as the first transport ships began moving between Earth and the alien fleet, carrying materials for the new embassy. "You know what the best part is?" he said. "This is just the beginning." Above them, the fleet's lights pulsed steadily, powered by the perfect combination of human determination and alien sophistication. It was a symbol of what could happen when advanced technology met practical innovation, when desperation led to inspiration, And when two civilizations learned that true progress often meant looking both forward and back, the stars beckoned, and for the first time, humanity would explore them not as a developing species, but as equals among the galactic community, all because they had refused to give up when faced with an impossible task.